Welcome to Live Action Star Wars. My name is James.
I'm Ralph.
And today we are talking about Films Are Not Released, They Escape. The behind the scenes documentary for Attack of the Clones, all about the sound design, the mix, everything sound related, everything Ben Burt related.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, half of the Ben Burt job. Like he doesn't. I don't think once mentions that he is also the film editor. But yeah, it's
Yeah, I
all
don't
of
think
his sound stuff.
right. And this is like the debut of Matthew Wood in
It really is. It's sort of like
extras.
the Matthew Wood coming out party. Like I was watching this with my girlfriend earlier on, and there's a few clips. I was just like, so I was sort of leaning over and was like, that's it. That's Matthew Wood. He basically now is the Ben Burt of everything.
Yeah.
But just watching this, that is the most apparent thing to me is the master and Padawan relationship between the two of them.
Yeah.
And it's exactly that. Like he's always there. He does some of the grunt work that Ben just doesn't want to do anymore.
Right.
He's got a lot of responsibilities in his own right. And it to me, it feels like Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan circa episode 1, where he's ready to make the jump up to being knighted, but when you've got such a great master there right there, like you're always gonna be working under him.
But what's great is he's sometimes the one sitting with George.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
they know.
there's a
I
comfortable
feel like
level.
everyone involved knows that he's the heir apparent.
Well, yeah, and according to this, Matthew Wood says himself that he's been working with Ben Burt for 2 years at this point.
Yeah, so he must have come on just after episode 1. But he's
Right.
isn't he in episode 1?
He is in episode 1.
He's in episode
Bib
1. So
Fortuna.
maybe he was working in the sound department, but like working for Ben directly for 2
Right.
years. I think that's probably the most likely.
Right.
If we were more professional, we would have looked these things up. But that's an episode 1 talk. This is episode 2. This is Attack of the Clones. And of course, we're doing this documentary, though he's not in it that much as Obi-Wan Kenobi. This is all still prequel era, Attack of the Clones era, Obi-Wan Kenobi build-up season. So yeah, after this, we've got 2 regular episodes left, and then we're into Kenobi.
Right.
It's creeping up on us really quick.
Yeah, we don't really get a lot of Ewan McGregor in this.
No, we
It's
don't.
all footage. It's all in footage.
We don't see him anywhere like in the booth or anything like that, which is a
Yeah.
shame. I was hoping we would, but yeah.
But
we still see him during the chase.
We get mostly interesting side characters like Zam Wessel and Lama Sue.
Yeah, I mean, we don't even see Lama Sue's actress, but we hear her. We hear her voice.
Yeah, okay. So one of the things that stands out in this documentary is the technology. The 2002,
2001, 2002, somewhere around there.
And it's crazy how excited Matthew Wood is to send that tiny QuickTime file to the Lucasfilm server so that they can access it in Australia.
Yeah, just the audio as well, because he already had a hard copy of the visuals there so that they didn't have to be streaming video. It's again, that was one of those moments I was like, what Ralph and I are going to do in a couple of hours is more technologically advanced than what they're doing now.
Exactly.
It's pretty impressive. I mean, maybe not quite as far as San Francisco to Australia, but I'd say it's comparable distance apart.
It's pretty far, and doing it live and having it broadcast is crazy. And probably, I'm not sure how my mic sounds. We have similar mics, but probably better than CD quality, which is what they were looking for.
I'd like
CD
to
quality.
hope so. Yes. Stevie brings up the thing here. I don't have time to FedEx it. It's exactly that. It's like what a different world. But yeah, that was the film industry back then. It was everything was sent by FedEx like next day. If you're in the same country anyway, like sort of thing. Like they could just get things. It reminds me a lot of one of the appendices on the Lord of the Rings extras. I think they were doing the score at Abbey Road in London, and they were transferring footage and things because they were editing as they were scoring still. Like that was again another film that escaped, wasn't released. And they were moving things, and the most efficient way for them to do it was on iPods. Like they had just literally using iPods as portable hard drives, because back in 2001 or whatever, like you could still have the big bulky. I think it was maybe maximum 5 to 20. I don't even know if the 20 gig ones were out then. So maybe 5 gig iPods. Moving those.
What's funny is, like, speaking of Peter Jackson, like a couple years later when he did King Kong, he abandoned Howard Shore's score for that movie. It got rejected.
Really?
Yeah, and so he brought in James Newton Howard, who had 3 weeks to do the score,
to do
a
long score.
And by that time, at one point, they had 2 different orchestras in 2 different studios scoring the film, and all via what we would say call Zoom. They had some sort of interlinked video system.
I was going to say, it was probably even before Skype, wasn't it?
Yeah. And this is like, what, 2005?
Yeah.
Somewhere around there. So James Newton Howard's in one studio with the orchestra. There's another orchestra that he's communicating with via video communications. Never met Peter Jackson once during this process. Peter Jackson was just a video on a screen that they had set up. And this is like 2005, and they're like using like every technology they can to communicate and get this stuff done. They had like 3 weeks to score it. The score to King Kong is fucking incredible. It's so good.
It's, I mean, I think it's the best part of that film. But I mean, it just sort of shows that all of these films, that you can throw the biggest budget in the world at them, but they're all this type of artist director where they are working right up to the gun, sort of thing. Like they are.
But what's crazy too, what's crazy about the whole thing is, even George Lucas is visionary. 3 years prior to King Kong was like, oh, we can do this. Like, he didn't even know that it was possible to do ADR looping from across the world. And he loves Matthew Wood brought that to the table.
Yeah. And you can see George at one point, like, he turns to him, he's like, this is the best we've ever done it. This is the most comfortable. This is so good. Everyone can be in their comfortable space. Because when you see, again, the actress's name is escaping me, but Zam Wessel's actor in the ADR booth doing her grunts and groans, it's like the most uncomfortable thing. I can't imagine what it's like having to perform that.
Yeah, it sounds like sex sounds.
And I mean, she even says, like, what kind of movie are we making? Like, it's not fun.
The thing that cracked me up about that whole bit was that George is like, oh, the first take is perfect.
Yeah.
And Matthew was like, can you give me please something else to work with? Yeah. And I feel like that may be what Ben Burtt is going up against with the editing.
Yeah.
Is George just being like, that's great. Okay, you did the, you said the words. Let me go put in the toys.
Yeah. Just give me a safety
take. There's 2 things going on that I was wondering about that whole thing. Was George just like wanting to move on?
Yeah.
Or was George trying to look cool to the actress in front of Matthew Wood?
The nerd in the nerd with the headphones on. Yeah. I mean, I think it's probably a mix of both. And also, I think it's George going, this is uncomfortable for you. Like, this isn't anything that you want to be doing right now. Again, like the fact that though George was overseeing all of these additional dialogue recordings. He's not just there for like Ewan and Hayden and Natalie. He's there for seemingly everyone, which doesn't need to do. You have second unit people for, not necessarily for that, but like you've got additional like sound directors. You've got people whose job it is usually to do those sorts of recordings.
Right. You don't, but in the same way, like, okay, so you have, Stevie just said he's the Ed Wood of billionaires. Yeah. The thing is that this is all paid out of his own pocket.
Mm-hmm.
Like this movie.
They are independent movies.
Yeah. And he has been sitting on these for years. And he is now able to do whatever he wants. Like in Star Wars, we've seen the pictures on set. We've seen the behind the scenes on set where he just looks miserable because he can't do what he wants to do. And he was never happy with the cantina. He was never happy with anything. Now he has the ability to do it all himself.
Yeah.
and he really wants to be part of the whole process. I feel like I don't know this, but I feel like he enjoys post-production more than shooting the film.
I think at this point in his career, at least, he definitely did, because he's a massive dork who loved pushing technology forward. And so it's at
Yeah.
this point that, I mean, I'm sure he enjoys all the new camera tech and everything, but it's at this point that he gets to play with the new toys.
The
It's
Yeah,
very
but
cool.
also but then the thing is also he has Ben Burt as the editor.
Yeah. And
So
they are
essentially
thick as thieves. They've been together forever, sort of thing. Like,
right.
yeah,
You even see the old school triangle Star Wars sticker in the background
love it.
of Ben Burt's
Love it.
office, which means he's been there before the first movie.
Hmm.
And he
The Star
like
Wars.
so I feel like it's just Ben and George.
Oh,
And so George is going to hang out to see what's going on with the movie. He's going to hang out with Ben, and Ben just happens to also be doing the sound and editing. So it's like that's the only thing going on with this film. You can see in a lot of the footage they're still using previs stuff.
mm.
So he probably splits his time between Ben Burt and Rob Coleman or
Yeah,
John Knoll,
yeah,
and then
yeah. The
that's
guys in
it.
the effects. Yeah.
And this
I mean,
this
that's why George is so prevalent in all of these documentaries that we see, because, well, when the production house is literally at the back of your actual house where you live, you
yeah
don't need to go down to the studio or anything like that. You can literally, it's turn a corridor and you're there pretty much.
yeah
That's got to be so comfortable for him. So he can just basically bum around in his like slippers if he wanted to. He didn't even need to get dressed up. Like, he just can
yeah
just go from whatever department that he needs to go to or wants to go to.
yeah
He's got the right people around him, and as Stevie said, it's the people around him that make him good, and
yeah
he's surrounded himself. He's kept the people that he liked working with when it was just what 12, 13 of them in a shed, and now
yeah
he's kept those guys. They are now the department heads, and he's got everyone who sort of, even if they don't see his vision, they trust that he does, and they will go along with it. They'll facilitate.
Right. And I don't like the term yes men. I know a lot of people say George surrounded himself with yes men. And
I
that, I
don't think he
mean,
did. I think Rick McCullum is, I think, the biggest biggest guilty party of that. But I mean, we've discussed it.
again, it's George's money
Yeah,
and you
it's
got to
George's
make George
money,
happy.
and
So
that's
you're
what
not
George
really
wanted.
gonna,
Yeah,
yeah, it's going to be, it's tough to argue. And the thing is, like, my favorite George is behind the scenes George,
yeah,
where he's
having
goofy,
fun,
he's laughing,
making the noises,
bad jokes.
Making Geonosian sounds.
Okay. So let me ask you this. For years, for decades, they used the Wilhelm scream. And I want to say The Last Jedi was the first time they didn't use the Wilhelm scream, and they haven't really used it since,
Mm.
as far as live action goes.
They got the
And
George scream
then
right.
there's a George scream,
Mm.
and I don't think it's confirmed where it came from, but I believe it came from a behind the scenes thing. And I'm wondering if it's during the part where he's making the Geonosian screams, because it's really
Possibly.
clean audio.
Yeah.
It's just him, and it's a really crazy sound.
Yeah, and he's going for it. If not then I'm sure that there's a ton of moments like that that
Right.
were recorded but maybe not on video, sort of thing. So, I mean, we've seen George be goofy. We've seen him make weird noises and
God.
stuff. So, yeah, it's got to be one of those sorts of moments.
Every time we watch one of these, I like him more and more.
I do. He's
And I
he's
not that
charming.
I know I've been coming around on the prequels, or I say I have, but I've been like just watching him having fun
Yeah.
and enjoying doing this stuff makes me like the prequels even more,
Yeah, me too.
because it's the prequels are doing something that the fans don't realize, which is they're just here to have fun.
Yeah.
Don't take it too serious.
I feel
And
like we were all too close at the time. We were all too in it, if
yeah,
that makes sense,
but at
because
the
it was
same
the
time,
first ones back. Whereas now that we've got a plethora and it sort of runs the gamut of people, what people like and don't like,
right?
now you can sort of step back and just be like, you know what? They're not as bad as people thought, or they're not as bad as I thought. Like,
But
there are
also,
definitely
like,
bad moments, but
oh yeah, but there's bad moments in every Star Wars.
exactly.
But I just the thing is for me is like all the fans take Star Wars in such high regard and lose sight of the fact that they're fun that I believe it's bleeding into the filmmakers who are making Star Wars today.
It's my
And
problem with the
that's an
last two.
issue.
Yeah.
And I want to, and I posted a tweet recently that said, um, the best thing about like Solo is that I don't have to hear people complain about it. Like you hear people arguing about Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. No one talks about Solo
No.
because it's just fun. It doesn't get into the seriousness of Star Wars. The sequel trilogy, as much as I like them, they take themselves really seriously, and that's kind of what bums me out.
And
And the fans take it
the most
serious,
universally enjoyed of the three is the one that takes itself the least seriously.
right?
Um, yeah, I mean, we haven't been brave enough to dig into that trilogy yet.
Yeah,
We've teased it, and we
we
know what
haven't
we're
been
gonna.
able to.
We haven't. I mean, we also have had other things on the plate, which is cool. That's what we want, but
Yeah,
we will, and they're gonna be some longer discussions. I feel because there's a lot to talk about in those aspects. The what is them making a film and what is them trying to please an audience? What is them answering to a previous film, to an audience demand? What is pandering's not the right word, but
they
it's
call
like
it fan service, right? But
yeah, but
fan service is.
I don't know if that even is completely applicable. It's these are the terms that get thrown around too much, and
But I
they
feel like
have a
they are
negative.
trying to service the fans.
Yeah, yeah. In the
Like
same way
I
that
don't.
like you can say a
Yeah,
retcon, but like a retcon has a negative connotation to it. But
I
retroactive
love retcon.
continuity,
I love
retroactive,
retcon.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's. But a lot of times people will just be like, oh yeah, no, they've retconned this. And it's like, no. A true retcon would be, filling in a blank of something that
right.
is like, and
Rogue
Star
One.
Wars is Rogue One is that
Rogue
movie
One is
is
a
a
retcon.
retcon. That's
Yeah.
not that's not taking away from anything.
Mm-mm.
It's just
It's building.
adding a new layer to it.
Yeah. So when I watch these and I see George behind the scenes, I'm like, look at this dude having a blast making a Star Wars.
Yeah, it really is.
And and it's infectious.
Yeah.
Like it's infectious. I really this, I mean, we've already covered it, but I'm like, I kind of want my next pick to be Attack of the Clones. And I
There's been
mean,
a few times.
it's
I
our
mean,
show, it's
whenever
our
we do,
rules.
whenever we do a behind the scenes, we always say it just made me want to watch that movie.
Right.
I mean, hey, if you want to do it, we could double back. We could. I'm sure that we got more to say.
We could do, I'm thinking, what did, if someone, or if you can figure out the release date of Attack of the Clones,
Got it.
I believe somewhere around that week is a data link episode. We could just make it the anniversary. I mean, so I believe that the 25th, which is our first anniversary,
Yep.
which was going to be our Kenobi episode, but Kenobi got moved. That could be pretty close to the 20th anniversary of Attack of the Clones. I say we just call it the anniversary of Attack of the Clones and just do a retrospective. We don't have to like watch the movie or anything.
Yeah.
But I want to say Attack of the Clones came out like on May like 26th or May 19th. It was like an off number.
Okay. Do you want the premiere or do you want it when it opened?
When it opened.
When it opened, in both the UK and the US, it was May 16th.
May 16th.
May
Okay.
16th. The premiere in LA was on the 12th. In London, it was on the 14th, and then it went wide on the 16th.
All right.
That was,
So
I believe, that was the first Star Wars movie that had a global release, or like almost global release, because Episode 1 definitely didn't.
Yeah, we knew. We heard about that. That's so weird.
Yeah,
I don't know why that doesn't make sense to me. But I mean,
No, nothing did. In like at that point, it was still in the 90s. Like nothing had a global release. We used to have to wait
yeah.
months at times sometimes.
And then what's fun about this documentary is it talks about the digital release and the
Yeah,
print release, and
yeah.
how it's like, don't do the prints because we're still going to be doing updates.
The digital can be updated. It can be
Yeah.
played with, but yeah, don't print anything yet.
So that could be part of the global release, is
That's what I'm thinking.
maybe Fox just couldn't, produce enough reels to get out. I mean, but it's Star Wars. You didn't pay for the
It's
movie. You're
and
just
it's also
distributing it. Like, get it
it's
distributed.
episode 1. They they could have done that. I'm sure
They
that they could
they
have
they
done that.
dropped the ball on that. But
That's
with
just
this digital release, George is probably like, it's going to be a global release. It's possible, because I
also
know he was
piracy
a
was
big,
up in 2002. Like so,
yeah,
it was
he was a big
probably
he was a big proponent for digital.
yeah.
I remember seeing stuff, hearing about it being shot on digital. I'm like, oh, is it going to look like a video?
Mm.
And I remember him having some sort of get together with Robert Rodriguez, who had shot like
At that
Spy
point,
Kids or something, or I don't even know.
I don't think so
It
yet.
wasn't
No, I think
was it Once Upon a Time in Mexico was shot digitally?
that was after as well though.
And he was
He
talking
was
with Robert
working on
Rodriguez
stuff.
about
Yeah.
digital, and they started like kind
I
of
mean,
getting into it.
Rodriguez has always been a pioneer of technology as well. Like
Yeah,
again, a guy who's made a movie for $7,000 is always going to be looking for the next thing.
right,
So it makes
right.
sense. It makes sense.
What do you think of his Star Wars?
I mean, he's got more to come. I think. I like
Yeah,
it. I've had fun with it.
has
I
it's
think
what's
it's
funny. But I was thinking about this earlier. What cracks me up is we'll go over trailers and stuff, but we don't do live reactions. We don't do reaction videos.
no.
And what cracks me up about the reaction videos is how hyped people are, but you never see it sort of the reaction to after the fact. And I was thinking about this because there's a possible Book of Boba Fett Disney Gallery coming up, which we'll get into a little bit later. But like, I haven't really thought of Book of Boba Fett since our last episode.
No, it's
And
definitely sort of just gone away.
it makes me glad I don't do reaction videos,
Yeah.
because I feel like the trajectory is way too off with trailer reactions.
Yeah.
Like give it a bit. But you never see like the after. They should always do a trailer reaction video after you've seen the series, the same trailer,
Go
and
back
just
and
see like
re-react.
blank stares.
Blake's there's oh yeah, that
Blank
was a
stares.
letdown, wasn't it? Or well, that scene's not even in it, sort of thing. Like
Yeah.
yeah, those sorts of things. Yeah, I do have times where I envy the people that go into films and TV completely unsullied, not watching any trailers. And
Mhm.
there are some things that I feel like I can do that with, but Star Wars is just not one of them. That I have no
Oh,
hope.
yeah.
I've
And that
never
has
been
nothing
able
to do
to.
with this show either. Like,
No,
we're gonna
no,
we're
no, no,
gonna
no,
we're
no.
gonna we're gonna dissect the trailers, of course,
Yeah.
and try to figure out some stuff in there. But
It is part of my enjoyment though, is going
but
through those trailers with not even just again, not for the show, but just for enjoying Star Wars
also
is watching those
also
trailers.
people who grew up in the dark time with no Star Wars, like, getting new Star Wars content is still super exciting. Like,
Absolutely.
I think 2 days ago was the anniversary of the first Force Awakens teaser.
Yeah, it would have
Like, it was
been
released,
around yeah,
however many years ago. And
that would have
and
been
it immediately was
2014.
like, I remember where I was when I watched that.
Yeah, me too.
I was on I was on a I was on a bunk bed looking at it on my phone because I was staying at my sister-in-law's house, and
Oh
we're in the
wow.
kids' room. And it was like the 1 minute thing with the rolling BB-8, and I was
Mm-hmm.
like thinking about it. I'm like,
Poe, Finn popping up out the sound like that. Yeah,
like, new Star Wars always is exciting.
yeah,
Always is
yeah.
exciting. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's I just love George. I love George and
He's
his
great.
enthusiasm. And
I love George and Ben Burt. Like it's one of those things that I
The
like
kids,
Matthew Wood. I'm a big fan of everything that that Matthew Wood has done at this time and then since. I think he is a great heir to Ben Burt. But
right?
there's just something about those guys, that generation of Star Wars creators,
Well,
that
what's
it is
funny,
like it's like seeing your cool uncles who are doing stuff again because I mean for me I've grown up. They've always been there sort of thing.
I feel like with Ben Burt, okay, so episode 1, which we're going to be talking about in a couple weeks. It's spoilers. We all knew, right? Did we all know? We all knew, right?
I had a good
Okay.
I had a good feeling about it.
In the scene where Queen Amidala first contacts the Nemoidians on the ship and the view screen goes, wow.
Yep.
Ben Burt grabbed that sound or recreated that sound from Flash Gordon serials.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know George loves Flash Gordon serials from the making of Star Wars, as told by C-3PO and R2-D2. And these movies are these prequels are so much Flash Gordon serials that I think watching these two guys talk about this movie and talking about the finished product and just being so happy with it.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as people rip on the love stuff, on the love scenes with Padme and Anakin,
And the Droid Factory. I still don't like the Droid Factory.
Oh, I need to talk about the Droid Factory.
Okay.
But it's so Flash Gordon. The acting style, the compositions, everything is Flash Gordon except the technology lets you make it otherworldly.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing those guys talk about this movie, which every Star Wars fan for some reason considers their bottom. For some reason, I mean that might change. That might be different with Last Jedi and
I think
Rise
there's
of
quite a few
Skywalker,
people
depending on
now
who you know.
where it isn't. Yeah,
but just watching how happy they are with the final product made me be like, you know what? They're right. I love Attack of the Clones, and they're verifying that I
and
should
they're making
love
that.
Attack
But
of the
that's the
Clones.
thing. Like George's, I mean, because you've sort of started serializing Attack of the Clones, but it is the most, I think, serialized.
Yeah.
In that way, that it's the closest to a Flash Gordon adventure of all of them, which is saying something. So Stevie brings up a point here that she is insanely jealous of the Foley artists. And as we were watching it, Liz was saying exactly the same thing. She wants that job. Like, we were watching something not too long ago. I think it might have been The Amazing Race or something, and they had a Foley challenge. And she was like, what is that? And so I was explaining Foley to her. She's not sort of into behind the scenes of films as much as you or I are. But that's it. Yeah. Just seeing them making out with their hands and then not being happy with, that one's not quite right. Let me make it more romantic as they're going in for another kiss on their hand. And then hearing George talk about it afterwards, where they'll watch this kiss and he was like, so was that like an elbow or a hand or what were you kissing to get that sound? It's like they're so hyper focused on that one thing. It does look like a fun job though.
There used to be, around the time the prequels came out, at AMC theaters, they had these ads for the LA Times, and the LA Times would do these behind the scenes on how movies are made.
Okay.
And there was just like a 2-minute long featurette or a minute long featurette, and the whole thing was like, get the full story at LA Times. And they had one for Foley artists, and even back then Steve was like, oh, I want to be a Foley artist. And what's funny is I realized that, like, I want to say in the LA Times video it was also like 2 ladies.
Yeah,
I don't know if it was the same ladies, but I'm wondering if Foley artists are predominantly female
from
run.
behind the scenes that I've seen, like there's a lot of women in Foley, and it is. I don't know why. I don't know. I have no idea. I guess I just got a good ear for it. Or certain ones. Are we seeing the same ones again? I can never remember anyone's name in the Foley department. Is it just like, is there like 10 to 15 Foley artists who work on everything, who are like the unsung heroes of Hollywood?
Maybe.
Possibly, or at least they know people and then networks develop that way.
I feel like we need to do a Data Link episode and
On
find some
Foley.
Foley artists
Let's get some
and
Foley
bring
artists.
him in an interview.
I'd love that. That'd be great.
Oh, it's fascinating because
we know some people who work behind the scenes. Let's dig in, see if they can find some Foley artists for us to talk to.
Probably could, but the thing is, it's like, okay, we know what the centipede should sound like.
Yeah,
scurrying across the floor. We know that. But to know what objects to grab to
that's what
that sound
throws me. It's
mind-boggling.
And it's when you see something that you're like, I know what it sounds like when I do that thing in real life, but that's not what it sounds like on screen. Like the running on a certain surface, it sounds like that. And so when I see it, I want it to sound a certain way, but it doesn't sound on screen like it is when I'm doing that. But to find the right surface, the right thing,
I like that you can't really replicate sound, so they just have sand. So you just have a box of sand in the thing and a shovel. Like some things are like a 1-for-1 thing.
This is what that is.
A shovel into sand.
Or even when like the clone troopers are marching and they've got a rifle. It could be any rifle, but just the movement and the shouldering it, the cockering.
In real life that the clone troopers' guns aren't that loud and rattly.
No. They're not clacking like Civil War era muskets.
But what else does it? Those guns wouldn't make a single sound, but you want that sound. It needs to satisfy your ear when they do that and then pull it up to their shoulder. So, but I'd like to go into a Foley artist's studio and just look at all the stuff and who's doing the grocery shopping.
Oh, that's it. Like, I mean, in the same way that Ben Burtt and Matthew Wood are going out, I feel like they've always got a microphone and recording setup with them, in case they hear something weird.
And it's funny seeing Matthew Wood in 2002 and Ben Burtt in 1977. Both carrying the same equipment, just the headphones with the deck and then the giant mic. And I was like, that's what I want to do. That's cool. What I want to do. I sent Matthew Wood a bit of sound once. I was in a parking garage and I was doing work and I was standing around just waiting and waiting and waiting because we were parking cars. And I was farting around with the cones, the traffic cones that we had. And that these real plasticky ones that were kind of ribbed on the inside, and I dropped it on another cone, and it hit it just right where it scraped on everything, and it just made this insane sound in the parking garage. It was the craziest sound. I should dig it up. I think I still have it.
Yeah,
I sent it to Matthew Wood, and he was like, "Wow, he's like classic parking cones." But he sounded like he's like, "Wow, that's great. Like, who'd have thought parking cones?" And I was just like, that's what I would love to do. Just watching them get access, getting a tour of a machine factory,
a factory, just to hear some weird sounds.
And then
I work in a power station. I hear some weird stuff in there. I don't know if, I mean, well, sometimes, but like in the actual station itself, there's always some weird sounds and stuff because there's massive generators and stuff, and so I'm sure that they've got sounds similar to that. But yeah, like it's the sort of place that
they said for the droid factory scene that they had to use every single machine part that they had in their thing. And I want to talk about the droid factory because I never really had a problem with it. I think the IMAX version kind of put a better version in my head.
It's cut right down, right?
Yeah. So instead of I mentioned this before, instead of C-3PO flying around all over the place, when he gets pushed off by R2 and gets pushed down, it cuts to him directly on the conveyor belt.
Perfect.
He gets his head knocked off. That's the end of that storyline.
That's what I want.
This is a nightmare. Getting wiggled around, all that stuff is gone. So there's a better version in my head. Now there's an even better version in my head because I sort of liked this raw cut,
Mm.
which they were doing in the final mix,
Yeah.
where it's just taking the sounds of the machines and creating a percussion.
I really
I
enjoyed that
kind of
percussion.
dug that.
It sounded cool, and I was like, I couldn't tell if is it sounding cool to me because it's new and it's exciting, it's different,
Yeah.
or is it?
I
Yeah.
I think it creates a new concept for the sequence. It gives it as it makes it unique.
Mm,
In Star Wars, we always have John Williams music.
hmm.
There's a few sequences that don't have music, like they mentioned the asteroid chase in this
Yeah.
film.
Just sound
The majority, the music doesn't kick in until
after the
Jango Fett
seismic.
shoots missiles.
Yeah.
Um, the so seeing this sequence, I felt like it was kind of a cool concept of doing it, not necessarily like taking the music out and just doing it as it feels musical, but it's
Hmm.
just the sounds of the
Rhythmic.
machinery and
It
this
makes it
percussion.
feel like I don't know, like going through a haunted house almost, like a trapdoor sort of situation.
Yeah.
More than running through a factory. Yeah, it's
It's
there is something
really
to it.
neat.
I really enjoyed it.
It it feels more like a sequence that has something to sort of do differently instead
Yeah.
of, okay, now it's just a regular old.
Insert action scene.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, there was a bad personality.
Yeah.
Bad personality. I
Yeah.
would like to see that version. I would really like to see that
Mm,
version of the Droid Factory sequence. One of the problems with Attack of the Clones is, from a score standpoint, these guys were editing so last minute that John Williams um, didn't really score the whole picture.
no.
The last couple reels from essentially when they leave Tatooine to come to Geonosis, it's a lot of it.
Reused.
Majority of it is reused music from
Mm,
episode 1, and that sucks because we'll never get like a full Attack of the Clones release, like a deluxe soundtrack. I mean, I feel like they might as well just do it, because at least the episode 1 music is re-edited, which I hate. I don't
yeah.
like re-editing of music, because if you're so familiar with the piece of music, when it's re-edited, it leaves you, first of all, it'll distract you because it's not the flow that you're used to.
Yeah.
And then when it'll cut in a different way and and become noticeable.
Mm,
So like if you've seen Ghostbusters Afterlife,
I
I
haven't
like
yet.
that they use Elmer Bernstein stuff,
That's cool.
but they completely used stuff from the original movie,
Mm,
dropped it into scenes that are completely unrelated, and it
that's
takes you out of the
yeah.
movie, because I've heard these themes since 1984,
That's it.
and now
It's
they're distracting me.
like
Um,
reusing a theme is fine when it's relevant for the character or
yeah,
the situation and stuff. That's okay. But
yeah.
when you don't have enough time to score the whole thing. But looking at Matthew Wood's like whiteboard with all of his post-its all over it, you can see how close and how up to it they are. I'm pretty sure they're in like March and April on some of those
Yeah.
post-its. And the film came out at the beginning of May, so there isn't a long turnaround.
Yeah, I feel like there has to be some sort of work print cut, and I know the Droid Factory sequence came in late.
Yeah.
Um, so they probably never were intending to score that. They're like, okay, we don't have time to score it. We'll do this concept of the percussion
Possibly
and
where
the
the
music.
percussion idea came from.
Yeah, and then the music was brought in so much later. It's
Mm.
not. There's like Yoda's theme in there during that sequence.
Yeah.
It's really bizarre. So just give Williams some sort of heads up, and like,
Just any rough cut,
even if
anything.
the recorded score has to be cut after,
Mm.
it can be done, and at
Mm.
least it's new music, and you're not just using a temp track. Um, I mean, if you
I
look at
mean,
live action Star Wars, um, the opening,
yeah.
I didn't write that music.
Mm.
It's stock music. I got that stock music, but I had already created the outsourced the animation and put in all the stuff you see at the beginning was pieced together from different elements that I created, and that was created. I had to find something that would fit that thing later, and I had the music and it was perfect, but
Yeah.
it was too long.
Yeah.
And so I went in and edited it after the fact. But once you have the music,
You can do that.
that's cool. You can fiddle with
And
it
if you've got
and get
professional
it to
sound
work.
editors and music editors and things like that, which you do, you've got
Yeah.
the best in the world at your disposal. You could chop it up. You can make it work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's
Yes.
it. There you go.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Give them
JT Kelly. It's yeah,
and if the
Jim.
automatics aren't the same
It doesn't matter
as
too
the
much.
final edit,
You can make
edit the
something.
music.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting fun fact is the blaster sound that I use as you crash after the Star Wars logo
Uh-huh.
explodes out of hyperspace. That's there to hide a music edit
There you go.
because I like the first part of the song, but it's like a 7-minute long song,
Yeah.
and
You need a
I like
way of
the ending of the song,
yeah.
and I kind of made them work, but I'm like, here, let me pop in this effect where the explosion and hide that. But there are things you can do.
Yeah.
Let John Williams score the entire movie. If you decide to cut the movie later, edit the music, dude.
And or just get him to just do a something. I'm sure that he can figure that out.
Especially since the droid sequence is still edited in a very sort of percussive way. Like John Williams could come up with something on that same beat. So
Yeah.
if you cut something out, you could still
Yeah.
use that same beat. That's my least favorite thing about episode 2 is the score.
That's interesting.
It's a real bummer.
It is a bummer. But then we do get all the interesting sounds, and knowing that they're all in there is kind of cool to be able to pick out each individual element. And I thought it was fascinating. This documentary opened with Ben Burt sort of saying, like, look, we've got all of these. I've just been recording everything for like at that point, what 40 years nearly, coming up on it, sort of 35 years. And he was talking about the fact that these audio tapes were deteriorating.
Yeah.
And to sort of bring them back to life, to get them to a point where I feel like it must be, I don't think they say it, but it's like to get them to a point where we can then digitize them. They had to put them in essentially an oven, and then they've got somewhere. It's like, nope, this one cooked for a little bit too long, and they essentially are just melting these reels.
It's a food dehydrator.
Yeah, I was gonna say it looked familiar, but it's even got a thermometer on top, sort of thing. Like,
yeah, he like stuck the thermometer in there to
keep track of it.
To keep track, like that kind of stuff I love because it's still them cobbling shit together to make a movie. Using like sound editors shouldn't have a food dehydrator in their office,
but you know that he's probably recorded it for some sound.
It's like let's go, get whatever you can to pull the moisture out of this thing or whatever you need to do.
Save these tapes,
and it still has that feel of the guys getting together and making a movie.
It's the same kit bashing sort of feel to it. Yeah.
As much as I love the idea of a story group and keeping Star Wars focused, I feel like it's that Han Solo line about being a committee. Like
don't have time to discuss it in a committee. Yeah.
Stop with the committee. Get to the fun.
I think there's room for both. I think there's room for both.
I still believe that's why I like Solo and Rogue One more in the Disney era, because we've all heard the problems and it just sounded like they were just trying to do anything to get this movie made.
Yeah.
Whereas your J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson's kind of have everything at their disposal and can do anything that they want, and it doesn't have that energy that I want.
And also that it was almost like they had more control, whereas the other two, the Star Wars stories, the guys that they had in there originally, they had a level of control, they had a vision, but then at some point it's almost like they're taking the movies back from them.
I think
just get them done.
I think that this documentary is great because you assume George has everything at his disposal.
Mm.
But what's great is he has everything at his disposal in 2002.
Yeah.
So he didn't have Skype before this.
Nope.
And so it's like he created a problem where he is now doing post-production work in California, but his actors are still in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, well, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to have to figure out how to get this to work. It's that the technology's not there yet, but we're going to have to make the technology.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they would have probably just flown that guy a 14-hour flight
got a different voice actor.
Yeah, that's what's crazy. The on-set guy could have just been a reference.
Yeah, absolutely. They've done it before. I feel like that's probably depends on how much. If it was just for a day, if they only needed a day's worth, I feel like it would have been cheaper and easier to just get a different voice actor in to do that role.
Right.
It's the sort of thing that Ben Burtt
I wonder
could have
if
done.
Oh, exactly. Like that could have been anybody. But the on-set actors, including like Dexter Jettster, like all these actors are doing their own voices.
Their performance. It's
yes, it's C-3PO all over again.
It's Brian Blessed as was going to be
because C-3PO was going to be somebody else's voice.
Yep.
Anthony Daniels was just there, but he gave such a performance that George is like, okay, I guess we should just keep him. Or Ben Burtt probably said that. But so now it's like that's the train of thought for George. If we want to sell these performances of these digital puppets, we need a singular performance.
Yeah. You just go back and you look, and you don't have James Earl Jones if they decided to go with the on-set performance. You don't have Wookiee sounds. We would love to hear Peter Mayhew as Chewie, and I do at times just hear that old man's mad. The Peter Mayhew of it is great, and knowing that dialogue is there under Chewie, but we want Chewie, we want Darth Vader,
So I like that there's constraints still. George can have anything he wants as long as the technology is there for him. And I feel like now the technology is fully like you can do any of this shit,
That's what we've said it a few times. What could George do with the volume?
Right.
Like it would be fascinating to see, and we know that he's played around on set with, like, he's seen it in action.
Right.
But
the problem is you get when you can do anything you want, you're not really focused on the story. I don't know. You're just not.
It's also Liz said it when they're talking about like the last line in this documentary is films are not released, they escape. And it's Ben Burtt that said it, but I feel like George said that back around the time of the special editions, because that's how he always felt about those first movies, that they just escaped, especially A New Hope, where he couldn't do much. Like he really felt that one had got away from him. And so to be able to go back in his mind, fix them, whether you agree with it or not, that was what he wanted to do. Everything, all those changes were all him. Even McClunky. I love McClunky, but like that was his final stamp on it, was just putting in that one thing. And it's great. I love it. But it is it's that feeling of you're never going to finish the essay if you don't have a deadline, if you don't have a hand-in date.
Yeah.
And so, and the more money that you got, the more access to these more things that you have, unless you've got a deadline, unless you've got a hard, we have to finish. And whether or not that's the studio taking it and going, nope, we're releasing this then, or whether it's a date that you have set. If you don't have that and you've got all the ability, you're just going to keep on making it forever, and then you never have a movie.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch Entourage?
No.
Entourage? No. Okay. It's one of those shows that I look back on now and go, God, it was not good. But there's one point in that, but I think it's about halfway through the run of the show. They're making a movie called Medellin, and it's the director that they've got is that sort of guy. He just wants to do more. He wants to go bigger. He wants to go bigger, and it just becomes a complete mess, and it's
Yeah.
terrible because it's that whole thing of, unless you've got a hard out, if you can only give Final Cut to the right people. I feel like not everyone should have
Right.
it.
But also with digital filmmaking and CGI, and you can do anything, you just start piling it on, piling it, and you lose sight of the fact that you're supposed to be making a fun movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm going to bring this up now, is one of the reasons why I like The Rise of Skywalker is because it just goes. It has an energy. It has a flow. It feels like something. It's
Yep.
exciting to watch.
Yep.
It's faster. It's more intense.
I love it, warts and all. Like, I can completely
Yeah.
see all the problems that everyone has with it, but I love it regardless of those flaws.
But you don't want to cut and paste those opinions.
I mean,
That's the thing I hate. Like
yeah.
I feel like it's the same argument every time.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem, I think, is this sort of narrative where the fans think they understand the process and think that J.J. Abrams doesn't know about Star Wars.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's weird. The whole thing's weird.
Yeah.
So we watch something like this, and I'm like, man, look at these guys having so much fun.
Yeah, they're having a great time.
It's fun. No complaints about any Star Wars, really, except for, small quibbles that don't really matter. Like, I have my issues with Last Jedi, but I never really talk about them because it doesn't matter. There's so much to like in Last Jedi for me that I accept it. Not that it needs my sort of validation, but I mean, come on, like, it's fucking space lasers. Like, look how excited Ben Burt was that this was going to be the most lasers in a Star Wars movie.
When he's going around to all the people who are doing the sounds in the arena, and he goes to the woman who he's got doing the lasers, and he's like, "It's got to be more than any other Star Wars." It's like, that's great.
Like, that's exciting.
Yeah.
It's not a cameo. It's not a thing. It's just like, wow, look at all this stuff.
Yeah. I feel like we've transitioned nicely into our outro, like our mantra for the show. But before we get there, we should really wrap up and tell people where they can find us. Unless you've got anything else.
Our next regular episode is going to be Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
Amazing.
Which I've watched recently. And that'll be in 2 weeks. Next week we'll have a Daily Link episode. Not sure what we're going to be covering then.
Yep. We'll figure out.
Been sort of playing Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga.
I know Ed's been playing it as well. I'll see if he's available. You guys can talk about that, and I can prod you with questions.
Let me do this. I forgot that the little eye. We talked about this off air. I'm trying to find something to stick in between those things, and I have this little eye bubble box which I need to change, but
it's great.
But all this stuff,
that's where you can find it.
liveactionsw.com will take you everywhere. Leave a wizard review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to us.
Yes.
If there's some sort of review / ratings thing wherever you're listening to this show,
Wizard 5 stars.
Wizard 5 stars. That's all we ask. It's as simple as typing out those letters and clicking 5 stars. And then our socials at liveactionsw.
Yep, you can find us there.
Follow us there, and you'll find out what we'll be covering on Data Link next week. And for those of you listening to the audio, head over to the YouTube channel at liveactionstarwars.com. Subscribe to us and hit the bell icon so you know when Data Link is happening and what we'll be covering.
If you've got anything in particular with Data Link that you want us to cover, please do let us know.
And the great thing about Data Link is there's no homework.
No homework.
You don't have to watch a movie.
No.
You don't have to sit through an Ewok movie. You don't have to do any of that stuff. You just show up and come and chat about whatever we're chatting about. If I'm going to just say right now, chances are probably 50-50 we'll talk about the Lego Star Wars game. Who knows? Maybe if a Kenobi 2 trailer comes up, maybe we'll talk about that. Who knows?
Maybe.
But we want you to come talk about it with us.
Yeah.
So join us on Data Link in 1 week and in 2 weeks. Phantom Menace, dude.
It's gonna be great. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm excited.
It's been a little while since I watched it, but yeah, it'll be fun.
It's been like 2 weeks for me.
It's a little while then.
A little while.
Oh, well. Long time.
All right. Thanks everyone in the chat.
Until next week on Data Link, and 2 weeks time for the Phantom Menace. Don't give in to hate.
Celebrate the love.
Punch it.